My family asked me never to contact them again, so I canceled the deposits, froze the family fund, and let them face the consequences. The next day, my sister called me desperately 13 times.
I'm 32 years old, male, and I earn about $165,000 a year, not counting quarterly bonuses, which, in good years, take me over $200,000. I've worked in this industry since I finished college. I started at the bottom as a project estimator, earning $35,000, until I reached the point of managing multi-million-dollar commercial projects. It was an arduous path. Weeks of more than 70 hours, impossible deadlines, leading teams of more than 50 people, and solving problems that, if not well managed, can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. My family situation is, let's say, complicated. My father has been on the go for over 10 years, which is a polite way of saying you live on the couch, and are convinced the perfect job will appear any minute now. He's 58 and hasn't had a stable job since the 2008 recession ended his sales career. My mother works part-time at a local jewelry store and barely makes about $18,000 a year when she does go to work regularly. The store is one of those boutiques that sells ridiculously expensive accessories for ladies who think spending $200 on a bracelet makes you sophisticated. My sister, Natalia, 29, is convinced she'll be Instagram famous. She has 2,800 followers who watch her posts of photos of coffee cups and fake handbags that she pretends are designer. She's never lasted more than 8 months in a job. She quit a receptionist position because answering calls wasn't for her. She was fired from a store for being late. She constantly quit her job as a hostess at a restaurant because a customer was rude to her. She changed boyfriends frequently, almost always based on their bank account or the car they drive. And she has the same understanding of finances as a child let loose in a candy store with an unlimited credit card. But of course, she's the girl of the house, the princess, who, according to my parents, never does anything wrong, so you can't criticize her or demand responsibility from her. About 6 years ago, when my career really started to take off, I made what I now recognize as a monumental mistake: financially supporting my family. At first, it seemed like the natural thing to do. My father needed to fix the transmission on his old pickup truck. It was $2,800, and I paid without thinking. My mother's credit cards were maxed out because of her compulsive shopping, so I covered the $3,200 she owed. Natalia had run out of money after spending her entire salary on new clothes and was about to be evicted. I paid her overdue rent of $1,650. At that moment, I felt great, successful, helpful, the one who saved the family. My parents were proud of my achievements. Natalia would even answer my calls and treat me with something resembling respect. For a brief period, it seemed like we were a functional family, but I learned something fundamental that I wish I had known sooner. When you continually help people, they stop seeing it as an act of generosity and start seeing it as their obligation. What began as emergency help turned into a permanent safety net, and without realizing it, I wasn't helping anymore. I was financing the lifestyle they had chosen. What were once occasional expenses became a monthly expectation. My father's car, for example, mysteriously needed expensive repairs every 3 months. My mother always had some unexpected expense that coincided with her desire to redecorate the house or buy new furniture. Natalia transformed financial manipulation into a kind of theatrical art. It was a real spectacle. She would call me at work, crying, saying that the rent was due in 2 days, that she had no money, that she was about to lose her home, that it was the last time she would ask for help. I describe a drama worthy of a soap opera: sleeping in the car, losing everything, having to move back in with our parents, and utter humiliation. The level of emotional manipulation was surgical, and without fail, 2 weeks later she would appear on Instagram in luxurious spas, expensive restaurants, or weekend trips with her boyfriend of the moment. The same person who said she was about to sleep in the car would post photos with $15 cocktails and designer sunglasses, as if she had never experienced any financial worries. But the real problem was Uncle Ernesto, my father's older brother, who proclaimed himself the family's financial expert. This man considered himself a kind of Warren Buffett because he worked for a while in an accounting office in the 90s. Since Grandpa Fernando passed away 5 years ago, he's been the main trustee of the family's assets, responsible for managing approximately $385,000 in investments, properties, and assets built up through a lifetime of work. His management philosophy, it seemed, consisted of treating this legacy as his personal entertainment fund. Gambling trips to Atlantic City, a fishing boat he couldn't afford with his retirement, several failed businesses needing temporary equity funding, all financed with money he should have been preserving for his family's future. And the worst part was that none of them seemed grateful. There were no apologies, no acknowledgement of the sacrifices I made, only demands, as if I were a luxury ATM dispensing money whenever someone entered the correct emotional combination. My role, it seemed, was to solve all their financial problems while they continued to make irresponsible decisions. I perfectly remember the moment I realized how trapped I was in this dynamic. It was at Thanksgiving dinner last year. I spent almost $3,000 organizing everything at a fancy restaurant just because my mother wanted to create memorable moments. There I was, watching Natalia take pictures of every dish to post on Instagram, including the $110 bottle of wine that I had paid for. My father complained about the pickup truck, the same one I helped finance. My mother talked about a trip to Mexico that I already knew I would end up paying for. And then Natalia looked at me with an indifferent expression and said, "Samuel, you're very lucky to not have any real problems. Must be wonderful to make so much money in construction and not have to worry about anything. Lucky you." As if my success had fallen from the sky. As if I hadn't spent 15 years working exhaustively, meeting impossible deadlines, dealing with insomnia and anxiety due to stress, constantly updating myself on new technologies and management strategies, only for my own sister to reduce it all to a simple stroke of luck. That was the moment I realized I needed an escape plan. I never imagined I'd have to implement it so soon. And that's exactly when my best friend Leo came into the picture. He was the only person who from the beginning clearly saw how my family was manipulating me. We met in college during our engineering course. Our friendship was born in long nights of studying, fueled by coffee, formulas, and that shared stubbornness to succeed in life, even coming from homes where financial support was practically non-existent. In the end, I specialized in construction management, while Leo followed a more entrepreneurial path. He founded a small but growing consulting firm focused on optimizing processes and systems for medium-sized companies. Leo has a sixth sense for detecting lies and manipulation. Perhaps he developed this because of what he experienced in childhood. For years, he observed my family's dynamic and was never afraid to express his concerns, although he always did so with affection, not judgment. "Dude, your family sees you as a walking ATM," he would say every time I mentioned paying them something. "How long has it been since they asked you how you are, if you're tired, what your career goals are? It's always 8, followed by a new sad story and a disguised demand." I used to downplay it. For me, family loyalty came before everything, and I genuinely believed that helping them was the right thing to do. But Leo kept a detailed record of everything. He literally wrote down every time I mentioned giving money to someone. One day, without warning, he showed me a spreadsheet with surgical precision. 78,000, delivered in just 3 years. 78,000. Think about it. More than people earn in an entire year. And I had simply transferred it all to people who were not only ungrateful, but acted as if it was my natural obligation. "They're draining you," Leo warned me during our last serious conversation about the matter. "And the worst part is that they don't even respect you. You're no longer a son or a brother. You're the sponsor, the financial lifeline. They've reduced you to a wallet with a voice." Leo has a brutal frankness. It hurts, but it's useful.
He also has an impressive ability to solve problems creatively, which would end up being essential in everything that came after. He knew real poverty, not the difficult times my father, Raul, always mentioned, but true misery. Raised by a single mother with 4 children who worked multiple shifts as a cleaner and waitress, his father abandoned them when he was only 11 years old. Leo paid for college with scholarships, student loans, and night shifts at a 24-hour gas station, studying between customers, often at 3 in the morning. That's why when he saw how my family took advantage of my success without giving anything in return, he was indignant. Not out of envy, but out of justice. His problem, he told me one night while we were playing online, is that you're using the strategy wrong. You're playing chess and they're playing checkers. They use emotions to manipulate you and you respond with logic. They tell you a sad story and you respond with a check to settle it. You're allowing them to use your own rules against you. So what do you suggest? I asked. That you stop playing by their rules and start thinking like a strategist. You're a project manager, right? You solve complex problems every day, coordinate teams, anticipate failures, so start treating your family situation as just another project that needs to be solved. At first, I laughed, thinking he was exaggerating. But that conversation planted a seed. The idea of applying the same analytical reasoning I used at work to my family was as logical as it was frightening. And 2 weeks later, everything crumbled because of a simple text message, a message that would completely change the course of my life. It was March 22nd at 4:12 p.m. I remember it precisely because at that moment, I was reviewing architectural plans for a large commercial project when my phone vibrated with a notification in the family group chat. A notification that, unbeknownst to me, would forever sever my ties with them. The message came from my mother Claudia's cell phone. We've all talked, and we think it's time for you to step away from managing the family finances. We can handle this ourselves. Please don't contact us for a while. We need space to sort things out without outside interference. I stared at the screen, unsure how to react. I read and reread the message several times. I was hoping it was a mistake, or that she had sent it to the wrong person. But a few minutes later, Natalia replied with a string of celebratory emojis, and my father, Raul, liked the message as if they had just announced good news. They had fired me, just like that, as if being a son and brother were a job you could be dismissed from. And I knew exactly what had caused it. 3 weeks earlier, I had asked Uncle Ernesto, responsible for managing the family estate funds, for a detailed explanation of some suspicious withdrawals I'd seen in the last quarterly report. I didn't make accusations, I didn't create drama, I just asked for clarity. Can you explain these transactions and what they were used for? Apparently, asking for an accounting of the money left by Grandpa Fernando was an invasion of privacy. For them, it was an act of control, an affront to their autonomy. The more I thought about it, the more angry I felt. Those people had used me for years as a financial safety net, expecting me to foot the bill for all their decisions and responsibilities, without offering any real support in return. And the day I asked a simple question, what was Grandpa's money being used for? I became the enemy. The first thing I did was call Leo. My hands trembled as I dug up the number. "This can't be real," he said as soon as I finished reading the message word for word. "They really did this? They cut you out like you were an employee." I can't believe it either. After everything I'd done for them, all the money I'd given, every favor? "Hold on," Leo interrupted firmly. "Actually, this is the best thing that could have happened to you. They just gave you the perfect excuse to cut them off completely. Now there's no doubt they showed exactly who they are and what they truly feel for you." "And family loyalty, where does that fit in?" I asked, still trying to rationalize. "Loyalty? You're talking about your sister posting photos in luxury destinations while you pay her basic bills? Or your parents who for years haven't shown any real interest in your life, nor gratitude for anything? Or your uncle who's been embezzling money from your grandfather's estate and still has the nerve to call you controlling for asking questions?" That last sentence hit me like a punch in the gut. "What are you saying, Leo? You said yourself he bought a boat with money from the estate. That's not simple administrative error. It's theft. Direct theft from the inheritance of a man who has already passed away." "So what do we do?" I asked, unable to hide my anger. "You won't face this alone. I spent years watching them exploit you and was just waiting for the right moment to help you confront them. Well, that moment has arrived." Leo's energy was contagious, but deep down, I still hesitated. Part of me thought maybe it would be better to just walk away quietly, leave everything behind. But then he spoke in a serious tone. "Listen carefully. These people have taken advantage of your effort and generosity for years, and the moment you ask for something basic, like transparency, they discarded you without a second thought. They no longer deserve your consideration nor your protection. What they deserve now are consequences." And the worst part is that he was right. For 3 years, I was the family's ATM, and all it took was asking for a little clarity for them to turn me into public enemy number 1. "Okay," I replied, feeling something shift inside me. "Where do we start?" "First, assess the damage. Do you still have access to their account and services?" At that moment, I smiled for the first time since receiving the message. In their haste to exclude me, they made a fatal mistake. They forgot to remove me from control of the finances. That same night, Leo showed up at my apartment with his laptop, several energy drinks, and a military-style operation order. He called in the family audit plan, and we started listing every account, service, or financial system I had access to. The list was much longer than I imagined. We discovered I was an authorized user on my parents' main account, access they'd given me years ago when Raul's credit was bad. I had the bank credentials because I had helped them open the accounts and set up automatic payments myself. Furthermore, I was the primary account holder for our family mobile phone plan, car insurance, and 6 utilities, including water, gas, internet, and electricity. Most importantly, I had full access to the shared cloud storage where Uncle Ernesto's legal estate documents and sensitive financial records were kept. And lo and behold, I was listed as an alternate trustee in Grandpa Fernando's will, something apparently only I remembered. "This is a gem," Leo commented, looking at the statements. "It was worse than I thought. In the last 6 months, Uncle Ernesto had withdrawn over $30,000 from the estate for personal expenses. Raul had exceeded the family account limit 11 times, accumulating hundreds in fees. Claudia, in turn, had accumulated more than $3,500 in compulsive purchases through telesales. But what chilled me was discovering Natalia. She had been using a credit card linked to my main line. Purchases in luxury stores, restaurants, spas, all without my knowledge. "Samuel, she's literally been robbing you for months," Leo said, checking transactions. "Look at this, $750 at Louis Vuitton, $100 at a downtown boutique, $420 at Nobrante, $280 on massages. She lives like a queen with your money." The most compelling evidence, however, was the mismanagement by Uncle Ernesto. Leo compared legal documents from the trust with the transaction history and built a solid case of fraud. "This isn't negligence, it's embezzlement." He said, "Fraud and breach of fiduciary duty." He used the money from the estate to put down the deposit on that boat. He paid off the mortgage with the funds. A withdrawal of $9,200 coincides exactly with the same weekend he posted photos in Atlantic City. "How are you so sure?" I asked. Leo opened his uncle's social media profile with a smile like someone writing a crime thriller. He posted photos at the Borgata Casino with the date and location. It coincides exactly with the withdrawal. Same date, same amount. Irrefutable proof. We spent 4 hours documenting every finding. Leo created an encrypted folder on his server and uploaded copies of all the bank statements, suspicious transactions, and any document that could serve as evidence.
When we finished, we had what could be a complete criminal dossier. "There," Leo said, leaning back victoriously. "That's enough to establish them financially and legally." "And now, what are you going to do with this information?" I asked, as a glacial clarity washed over me. "I want them to feel the same way they made me feel. Used, betrayed, taken advantage of, and completely powerless." "Perfect," Leo said, feeling it with conviction. "But we need to act intelligently. We can't destroy everything at once. We have to apply progressive pressure so they understand exactly what they're losing and why." He explained the so-called cascading strategy. "First, slowly cut off their access to my funds and lines of credit so they feel financial strain without immediately understanding the source. Then, one by one, close the services and accounts I financed, forcing them to assume basic responsibilities. Finally, expose Uncle Ernesto's fraud to the authorities so that criminal justice can take care of the rest." "And Natalia?" I asked Leo. Leo smiled with an almost demonic expression. "Ah, I have specific plans for your dear sister," he said with heavy intent. "She built a life of appearances with your money while treating you like trash. It's time for her to experience the real world." We decided to start with small but strategic moves that would accumulate. The first move was to call my phone company and remove the entire family from my cell phone plan. No warnings, no explanations, no chance to find an alternative. Their phones simply stopped working mid-conversation. In less than 3 hours, I already had over 20 missed calls and 40 text messages in my inbox from different family members, all desperately trying to understand why their phones had suddenly been turned off. Some were confused. "You forgot to pay the plan." Others were more demanding. "Solve this right now!" And the most desperate, "I need the phone for work, Samuel, please." I didn't respond to any of them. The next step was to unlink myself as an authorized user on all utility bills, electricity, gas, etc., internet, water, everything that was being automatically charged to my credit card. I called each company, canceled the payments, and informed them that I was no longer responsible for those services. The beauty of this method, explained Leo excitedly, is that they can't blame you directly. Everything seems like a sequence of administrative problems. They have no way of knowing it's part of a plan. They'll have to resolve each situation separately without realizing the connection between them. The third step was with the car insurance. For years, my whole family was included in my group policy because it was much cheaper. So I called my broker and removed them from the plan with immediate effect. That's when things got really interesting. The next day, Raul, my father, was stopped by the police on his way to the hardware store. It was a routine traffic stop. What should have been just a minor warning turned into a disaster when the officer found that his vehicle was uninsured. The result? A 450 reale fine, the car impounded on the spot, and his license suspended until he presented new coverage. He called me yelling, furious, convinced the insurance company had made a mistake, and demanding I resolve everything immediately. I didn't answer. I let the call go straight to voicemail. Meanwhile, Natalia was discovering that her favorite pastime, maxing out credit cards on luxury purchases, had come to an end. I contacted the card issuer, removed her as an authorized user, and began disputing all purchases from the last 6 months as unauthorized expenses. The $750 Louis Vuitton bag was returned. The $1,100 purchase at designer stores was canceled. Expensive dinners, spa treatments, and a myriad of luxuries vanished in a flash, refunded by the same establishments that processed the purchases. But the best part was what Leo did to her social media presence. Natalia had built an entire public image based on a life of luxury and success. She constantly posted designer clothes, exclusive dinners, expensive trips, all perfectly edited to look like an aspirational life. But each of those items had been paid for with my money. Now that I had cut off the source, she couldn't maintain the facade. Leo, who was a born strategist, had been collecting screenshots of her posts for months, building a detailed archive of her fake life. When she started posting content in a victim-like tone, talking about envious people wanting to destroy her, he activated several anonymous accounts and began commenting on the posts with visual evidence. "Isn't that the same Louis Vuitton bag you returned last week, accompanied by a picture of her at the customer service counter? Loving this designer lifestyle. By the way, how's your brother's credit score? I wish I had a brother who would pay for my massages." All supported by screenshots of the refunds I had initiated. It was quite a spectacle. Within days, the comment section turned into a war zone, and followers began questioning whether anything she was showing was real. In 2 weeks, she lost 45% of her followers, and that was just the beginning. While financial chaos took over their daily lives, Leo and I prepared the final blow, presenting the authorities with proof of the systematic fraud committed by Uncle Ernesto. Remember that I was co-administrator of Grandpa Fernando's inheritance? Well, that position of legal authority is crucial, especially when the main administrator is embezzling funds and breaching fiduciary duties. With Leo's help, we researched every step necessary to denounce the misconduct of a fiduciary and put together a dossier so solid that, according to him, it would make any prosecutor rub their hands together. We included bank statements, receipts, social media posts, credit card transactions, behavioral patterns, everything necessary to demonstrate, without a doubt, that Uncle Ernesto had been plundering the inheritance for his own benefit for a long time. But before triggering this legal bomb, we wanted to give them one last chance to show who they really were and what really mattered. So, he drafted an email to the entire family group. The tone was formal, clear, and absolutely reasonable. "Hello, everyone. I have been reviewing some financial documents related to Grandpa Fernando's estate and have detected certain irregularities that need to be investigated.
As the alternate trustee, I have the legal responsibility to investigate these inconsistencies. So I sent a formal message to my uncle Ernesto requesting detailed explanations about several withdrawals made from the estate's accounts. The request included a list of 18 suspicious transactions totaling over $52,000. The response was immediate, perfectly coordinated, and exactly as Leo and I had predicted. You have absolutely no authority to question my decisions or how I manage this estate, Uncle Ernesto replied. I take care of all of this without needing anyone to supervise or interfere. My father, Raul's reaction was even more infuriating. Samuel, you're completely out of touch. Ernesto knows perfectly well what he's doing and doesn't need to justify anything to you. My mother, Claudia, quickly joined in with her usual tone. That's exactly why we're asking for space. You're being controlling, disrespectful, and totally inappropriate. And of course, Natalia with her typical lack of empathy. Please, can you leave everyone alone for once? Your obsession with money and control is terrifying. None of them bothered to question the disappearance of the money. No one showed the slightest concern about possible fraud or mismanagement of Grandpa Fernando's legacy. They simply shut down and attacked me for asking legitimate questions based on real documents. Perfect, Leo said, reading the responses. They just gave us everything we needed to demonstrate that this isn't a family drama or a personal conflict, it's criminal conduct, and everyone is helping to cover it up. That same afternoon, I filed formal complaints with the State Attorney General's office alleging negligence on the part of the trustee, misconduct in the performance of his duties, and possible acts of misappropriation of funds. I also sent all the documentation to the local district attorney's office and the IRS Fraud Investigation Division. How long do you think they will take to realize what's going on? I asked Leo. And from what I've seen in other cases, in less than 48 hours, Ernesto will receive a very uncomfortable call from a government lawyer. Inheritance fraud is taken very seriously, especially when there's so much documented evidence. And as always, Leo was right. 2 days later, my father called me completely desperate. Samuel, what did you do? The police want to talk to Ernesto about the administration of the estate. They've frozen all the accounts. Your mother is beside herself. We don't understand anything. I did my duty, I answered calmly. I reported what the law requires when an alternate trustee finds evidence of misconduct. Nothing more, nothing less. But Ernesto said all the withdrawals were legitimate. Dad, he stole over $52,000 from Grandpa Fernando's estate to buy a boat and pay off gambling debts. The accounts weren't frozen out of revenge, but because your brother-in-law committed several crimes and violated his legal obligations. On the other end of the line, absolute silence. We need to talk about this. No, we don't need to talk about anything. You made it very clear that you didn't want me involved in the family's financial affairs. Objective achieved. I hung up the phone. And then turned it off. A feeling of peace washed over me, something I hadn't felt.
Samuel, please call me. The lawyer said Ernesto could go to prison. All the accounts are frozen and we can't afford a defense. We need your urgent help to resolve this, my father said, his tone defeated. Son, we know we didn't handle this in the best way, but we're still family. Ernesto made mistakes, yes, but he doesn't deserve to end up in jail. Couldn't you drop the charges and resolve this between us? Natalia asked, desperately. This is total madness. Ernesto isn't a criminal. He just made a mistake with money. Besides, they took my things, ruined my credit, and I can't even buy food. What a disaster. And the most revealing of all came from Aunt Veronica, Ernesto's wife. Samuel, I don't know what you think you're achieving, but you are destroying this family. Ernesto, deep down, is a good man who made mistakes. If you had any decency or family loyalty, you would be helping us, not attacking us when we need it most. Leo and I burst into laughter, incredulous as we listened to all of that. None of them took any responsibility. No one apologized for how they treated me, nor for using me for years.
They still don't understand what's happening, Leo commented, amused. They're not bothered by what they did to your grandfather or to you. What really bothers them is the fact that finally, this is having consequences. Do you think I should respond to them? I asked. Not yet, Leo replied. Give them some more time. They need to truly realize that the life they led at your expense is over. Only then will they truly change. And he was right. As the weeks passed, the magnitude of their financial dependence on me became completely evident. Without my support, the whole system collapsed spectacularly. My father's truck was repossessed by the bank because he could no longer afford the payments. My mother had to cancel her planned trip to Mexico and started working extra shifts at the jewelry store just to cover basic expenses. Natalia, in turn, ended up moving back in with my parents because she couldn't afford the rent, nor the bare minimum to survive. Her aspirations of becoming a social media influencer were dashed when bailiffs seized all her supposed luxury brands. That's when I discovered something even more surprising. For the past 2 years, I had signed as guarantor on the lease for the house where they lived. Upon legally withdrawing from the contract, the landlord reviewed the family's actual income and determined that they did not meet the minimum requirements to remain in the property. They were given 30 days to vacate the property, but the biggest problem was something else: the rapidly accumulating legal costs. Uncle Ernesto was facing several fraud charges and urgently needed a criminal lawyer specializing in financial crimes. This type of defense is anything but cheap. Initial estimates were around $5,000. With their finances completely ruined, they had no way of affording it on their own. That's when my father, Raul, finally set aside what little pride he had left and came to see me in person. It was a Saturday afternoon and I was working from home. The doorbell rang, and looking at the security cameras, I saw my father at the door. He looked like he had aged about 15 years in just 1 month. He was wearing a wrinkled shirt, his hair was completely disheveled, and he had an expression that screamed defeat, a far cry from the man who years ago used to lecture me about family duty and knowing my place. I decided to leave him waiting there for 10 minutes, watching on the monitor as he moved nervously, rehearsing several times what would probably be his speech. Finally, I opened the door. "Samuel," he said in an almost inaudible voice, "please, we need to talk." "Talk about what, exactly?" "About Ernesto? About how the whole family fell apart? Or about how wrong you all were all this time?" I led him into the room, but I didn't offer him a seat, water, or coffee. He stood there, uncomfortable, observing the surroundings, the well-decorated room, the modern electronic devices, my clearly stable life, everything I've built since I stopped supporting adults and guardians. "The truth is, we ruined everything," he said, his voice trembling. "We failed you for years. We abused your generosity. And when you tried to set limits, we excluded you as if you were worthless. We know this, and although we don't deserve it, we've come to ask your forgiveness." "A sincere apology? How desperate are you?" I asked coldly. I saw his shoulders slump completely. His voice, heavy with anguish, was clear. "We're going to lose the house in less than 2 weeks. Ernesto could get 5 to 10 years in prison if we don't get a good lawyer. Claudia is exhausted, physically and emotionally, from working double shifts. And Natalia? Well, now she's considering moving to Las Vegas to work as a barmaid because she sees no other way out." With my credit history ruined, I had to suppress a laugh. Natalia, who always considered herself too refined for any ordinary job, was now about to discover what it's like to earn a living without depending on other people's money. "All this sounds like problems that don't concern me," I replied bluntly. "You're absolutely right," he admitted, lowering his head. "But we still hoped you would consider helping us, despite everything." "And why would I do that?" I asked, staring at him. For the first time since he arrived, he held my gaze. "Because you are a better person than all of us. Even after everything we've done, you're still the only one with the resources and integrity to get us out of this situation. "And what exactly do you expect from me?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "That you help us pay Ernesto's lawyer. That you guide us in finding housing we can actually afford. And if you have any compassion, that you allow us to be a part of your life again." I pretended to reflect for a few seconds, long enough for a spark of hope to appear in his eyes. Then I spoke firmly. "You can't spend 3 years treating me like a walking ATM, excluding me from your lives the moment I start demanding accountability, and then coming back begging for help when everything falls apart. Things don't work that way. But we apologize now. We are sincerely sorry. You apologize now because you're desperate, not because you truly understand what you did to me. If Ernesto weren't facing charges, if you hadn't lost control of the finances, if you could still maintain the lifestyle you had at my expense, would you be here asking for forgiveness? Or would I still be the problematic one, the one bothering you with your questions?" He remained silent. He didn't need to answer. We both knew the truth. "Here's the thing," I continued, with a definitive tone. "Ernesto will plead guilty and spend a good amount of time in prison because he's a thief who stole his own deceased father's estate. You and Mom are going to move to a house you can actually afford with your income. Natalia is going to have to find a real job and learn what life is like without the comfort of other people's money. And all of you will live with the consequences of having treated me like a burden for years. And you? What are you going to do?" he asked in a low voice. I took a deep breath. "I'm going to move on with my life, surrounded by people who value me as a human being, not as a source of money. Starting with Leo, who has been more of a brother to me than any of you." And as if fate wanted to add a theatrical touch to the scene, Leo walked through the door at that exact moment, bringing bags of food for our video game session. "Well, well, what a surprise, Mr. Herrera. How's the family bankruptcy going?" My father's face turned red, a mixture of shame and contained anger. He didn't say a word, just turned around and left, probably never to return. Comment by Airhadit. It seems that in the end, the problematic one was just the only adult in the family. Funny how the money disappears and suddenly everyone remembers the phone number. All from Heredit. For you, watched enough to spark a glimmer of hope in his eyes, and I spoke firmly. "You can't spend 3 years treating me like a walking ATM, excluding me from your lives the moment I start demanding accountability, and then coming back begging for help when everything falls apart. Things don't work that way. But we apologize now. We are sincerely sorry. You apologize now because you're desperate, not because you truly understand what you did to me. If Ernesto weren't facing charges, if you hadn't lost control of the finances, if you could still maintain the lifestyle you had at my expense, would you be here asking for forgiveness? Or would I still be the problematic one, the one bothering you with your questions?" He remained silent. He didn't need to answer. We both knew the truth. "Here's the thing," I continued, with a definitive tone. "Ernesto will plead guilty and spend a good amount of time in prison because he's a thief who stole his own deceased father's estate. You and Mom are going to move to a house you can actually afford with your income. Natalia is going to have to find a real job and learn what life is like without the comfort of other people's money. And all of you will live with the consequences of having treated me like a burden for years. And you? What are you going to do?" I took a deep breath. "I'm going to move on with my life, surrounded by people who value me as a human being, not as a source of money. Starting with Leo, who has been more of a brother to me than any of you." And as if fate wanted to add a theatrical touch to the scene, Leo walked through the door at that exact moment, bringing bags of food for our video game session. "Well, well, what a surprise, Mr. Herrera. How's the family bankruptcy going?" My father's face turned
Enough to spark a glimmer of hope in his eyes. Then I spoke firmly. "You can't spend 3 years treating me like a walking ATM, excluding me from your lives the moment I start demanding accountability, and then coming back begging for help when everything falls apart. Things don't work that way." "But we apologize," he insisted. "We are sincerely sorry." You apologize now because you're desperate, not because you truly understand what you did to me. If Ernesto weren't facing charges, if you hadn't lost control of the finances, if you could still maintain the lifestyle you had at my expense, would you be here asking for forgiveness? Or would I still be the problematic one, the one who bothers you with your questions? He remained silent. He didn't need to answer. We both knew the truth. Here's the thing, I continued with a definitive tone. Ernesto will plead guilty and will spend a good amount of time in prison because he's a thief who stole his own deceased father's estate. You and Mom are going to move to a house you can actually afford with your income. Natalia will have to find a real job and learn what life is like without the comfort of other people's money. And all of you will live with the consequences of having treated me like a burden for years. And you, what are you going to do? He asked in a low voice. I took a deep breath. I'm going to move on with my life, surrounded by people who value me as a human being, not as a source of money. Starting with Leo, who has been more of a brother to me than any of you. And as if fate wanted to add a theatrical touch to the scene, Leo walked through the door at that exact moment, bringing bags of food for our video game session. Well, well, what a surprise, Mr. Herrera, he said with sharp sarcasm. How's the family bankruptcy going? My father's face turned red, a mixture of shame and contained anger. He didn't say a word, just turned around and left, probably never to return.
Comment by Reddit of the day. It seems that in the end, the problematic one was just the only adult in the family. Funny how the money disappears and suddenly everyone remembers the phone number. All from Reddit for You Watched. If you've watched this far and enjoyed the story, like our videos and subscribe to our channel. See you next time.